It's the unfortunate part of this business where Monty Ossenford unfortunately has to eat and continue to double down on what I feel like were two mistakes last offseason.
The first part of this is prepping and priming the roster for the fun parts of the offseason, which are free agency and the NFL draft. The Arizona Cardinals, I think that there's a very big splash move they can do internally. And then there's, of course, the not so fun moves that they have to make as far as trying to create cap space.
Let's take a look at the internal moves. Let's start right now with, how about let them walk? Let's look at some of the free agents the Cardinals are not re-signing according to your boys. And again, some usual suspects on here, and then some names that could lead to bigger and better acquisitions. But the two in the center, Bo, it's the restricted free agents. We say goodbye to Greg Dortch. We say goodbye to Jesse Luketa on top of stalwarts like Kazir White, Matt Prater, LJ Collier, Dennis Gardeck. It's an offseason of change. It's changing and raising the bar. That's the theme of the offseason.
Yeah, you're letting them walk, and you're hoping to hit the upgrade button and get some maybe more talent in the door than exited. I mean, we've seen now in two off seasons as far as just trying to put together first a 90-man roster and then a 53-man roster, them hold on to some guys that they're familiar with that they could play a role. But some of these guys are being let walk because there's going to be opportunities right away to fill their spots on the roster with big time impact players.
Yep.
And then there's some guys that you want to make way for the NFL draft and bring them some prospects. But I'll say this, I'll preface it with this. There's not a whole lot of there's no insider knowledge here. This is just playing forecaster here, right? I mean, don't take this as the gospel that this is what's going to happen. I could very well see a guy like Evan Brown or LJ Collier or Roy Lopez or Jesse Luketa or Greg Dortch come back and be a part of this roster. But in order to make the moves that we want to do in the dream offseason, there needs to be some spots available for those guys.
I think that's important to clarify. It's also important to clarify. I see a lot of people in the chat talking about LJ Collier and Roy Lopez. Would it be our intent to keep them? Absolutely, Bo. But why can't the Arizona Cardinals keep them in our scenario? Because Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols have too much flipping dead money, and we got the calculators out. We got the T1000s out, or the whatever you want to call it. I didn't flip mine upside down and started spelling naughty words. We got down to brass tacks with it via over the cap. Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, there's almost no benefit to cutting them, either of them. Pre or post June 1st.
Yeah.
So whose roster spot are they taking? We're talking about rotational defensive linemen. Darius Robinson's going to start, and then we're bringing in an influx of talent. It's the unfortunate part of this business where Monty Ossenford unfortunately has to eat and continue to double down on what I feel like were two mistakes last offseason. So if you want Collier and Roy Lopez to stick around, then you're not adding anybody else to that room.
And then I'll also say, just wait to see what we're cooking up here. All right. Some of these guys, you're going to see them and say, no, don't let them go. And just wait to see who's coming in is going to be wearing the Cardinals red and white in this dream scenario. But one last look at the fond farewell. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. With this crew here, Chris Barnes, 2 years in the desert. Ed Brown, 1 season. LJ Collier, but a season and a half, barely a season and a half. Greg Dortch, so many good years, holdover from the previous regime. So was Dumakagi, Dennis Gardeck, Will Hernandez. Yeah, Greg Dortch. This is almost wishful. We want him to be able to hit the open market because he can maximize his earning potential here as a restricted free agent. They basically sign off and he gets a little bit of a bump. And then we've got Zay Jones, Roy Lopez, Jesse Luketa, Zach Pascal, Matt Prater because of Chad Ryland's emergence, and then Kazir White, who we've already seen, just kind of reading the social media tea leaves, saying farewell to Arizona, where he was kind of the JG guy that ushered in the new culture. And just kind of with his position and his age, might want to get younger at the linebacker spot.
So these are folks that are scheduled to be free agents. These are not cap casualties. We'll get that here in a second. but let's talk about it, Bo. Bring them back. Let's highlight it. Which Arizona Cardinals are getting brand new deals this offseason that are scheduled to be free agents? And we got 3 plus an extension here. Kelvin Beachum at 35 years of age gets a 1-year contract, $3.5 million. He comes into training camp and offseason team activities as your starter at right tackle. Cardinals have a chance to upgrade later this offseason. Baron Browning, again, he comes back as a depth piece. I think this is kind of hedging our bet too, Bo, where we feel like Austin Ford will want to be able to build on, giving up a draft pick for him. He started a lot. People love their pressures. He did only have 2 sacks. I think they'd like to be able to take an athlete at 25 and use him throughout the duration of their offseason program. Baron Browning, I'll just preface this right now. He is not a starter in our scenario. He is a rotational depth piece. He is the new Dennis Gardeck, who coincidentally was making about $6-7 million a year. So while I don't love status quo, I'm okay with Baron Browning coming back, Bo, as a depth player. And then the coup de grace, the chef's kiss. Trey McBride is the highest paid tight end in the NFL. 4 years, just over $18 million a season, $75 million in total, $40 million in guarantee. He's a staple. He's a Pro Bowler. Now he's highest paid or one of the highest paid players on the Cardinals.
Yeah, we just kind of used TJ Hawkinson's extension, the last kind of top flight tight end that received the extension. It's just a little bit of a notch above that, probably about over 30 million, maybe 32 million guaranteed for the Cardinals, going to be fourth year tight end who went over 1,100 yards, 2 touchdowns receiving, 2 other touchdowns, including a rushing tutty for Trey McBride. He was the vocal point of their offense. And, Jonathan Gannon has said it. His post-game press conference at one point said, touchdowns weren't going to be the reason why he gets, paid. You got Kyler Murray and, so many of his teammates. Michael Wilson recently told us, just give the guy what he's worth. And this is what we believe he's worth, the next big tight end contract. Kelvin Beachum's just a little bit of a bump, 1 year, $3.5 million. He was making about 2.5 last season. So that's for a guy that could come in and potentially compete to be your starting right tackle. That's a steal. And then the Browning deal is 1.6. That's a prove it deal. But as you were saying, you're letting Lucetta, you're letting Dumakaji, you're letting Dennis Gardeck walk out of your building. All you have at that position, Zaven Collins under contract. You got the 2-year extension. XT, Xavier Thomas, a 5th-round rookie, and then BJ Ujulari, who is injured. So you got to have, healthy bodies just on your roster, just to make sure you cover your backside going into free agency and draft.
Yeah, and again, Baron Browning was identified by Austin Ford. He's a top, I think, 50 ranked free agent via PFF. He is a nice rotational piece. Like Zaven Collins, he cannot be a starter. You want to mitigate some of these issues with your pass rush, flush the position with capable guys. He looks capable in the right situation, but unlike, like Zaven Collins, if he plays too much, these guys get exposed, right? So I'm all for it. Listen, here's the unfortunate part when it comes to edge rusher, Bo, is we're going to have to get creative until the draft. And Austin Ford dropped the ball last year without pursuing Jonathan Grenard and company. So we're going to get creative with capable bodies, and we're going to raise the talent level of that position group. Lastly here, and this is the toughest part about this, we have 2 cut candidates right now. One for injury concerns and one because it's a dollars and cents game and it's a loaded position group. So, again, let's take a look. Cap casualties for the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Thompson, if he's a post-June 1st cut, the Cardinals save $10 million with, I believe, only $3 million in dead money. You start Rabbit, Taylor Demerson, who's making no money, a 4th-round rookie. And then Jonah Williams, who, by all accounts, is not healthy, got injured toward the end of the year, had to be carted off against Seattle. Very similar to DJ Humphries. You cut Jonah Williams 1 year after you sign him. He's got voided money in 2026. These 2 releases alone, $20 million in cap space for the Arizona Cardinals, Bo.
Yeah, and you're looking at the Arizona Cardinals as it stands right now, about $68 million in effective cap space money they can really kind of do the damage with. I think if you were to ask Jonathan Gannon, he'd want to keep a guy like Jalen Thompson.
No
But then
doubt.
you go upstairs and you talk to the general manager who's, looking at just kind of his spreadsheet, and he's looking at, what it would cost to keep him. We make about $14 million next season. And then you look at this post June 1st savings and you're trying to free up cash. There's not many other opportunities on the roster to free up some money. And it would be really kind of unfortunate. I mean, you're looking at a season removed where Gannon was giving all the superlatives and talking so highly of Jalen Thompson. It's the harsh reality, brutal reality of the NFL.
I see a lot of people asking, can you not get a pick for Jalen Thompson? We're operating under the assumption that you cannot at that number, like $14 million next year. I don't think anybody's trading a pick for a player at safety paying that much money. I mean, Jalen Thompson's already one of the highest paid safeties in the NFL. You just extended Budda Baker. It's a luxury the Cardinals can't afford. You're going to have to get worse temporarily at one position to upgrade at another position of a bigger need. And I just feel like at the end of the day, Taylor Demerson has to play. I think we're both under that agreement. Gannon is a defensive back safety savant. They could add another. Nobody's trading for a safety. When's the last time a safety of note outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick got dealt? I'm sure you could shop him. We looked at the Denver Broncos as a potential option. They've got minimal cap space. Like, what's a team with a bunch of cap space that's going to be trading for a safety? That's the question you have to ask that has need at that position. So logistically, friends, paying two safeties over $30 million in 2025 for a team that needs other positions to get them over the hump, it's not good business for this team. This is an unfortunate part of this industry, but as for Jonah Williams, I think we all can kind of come to grips with the reality that if Kelvin Beachum can give you what he gave you last year and you can get an heir apparent, somebody in the pipeline, that's your best bet. So we wish Jonah Williams the best in his recovery, but he will not, in our scenario, be an Arizona Cardinal Bo in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you're just paying the tab for $16 million for a guy. Like, are you going to get anything from him next season? Just considering when his injury happened and the timeline that it would take for him to come back. So it just would make more sense, much like the DJ Humphries cut last year. Like, they seemed like the Cardinals were going to entertain keeping DJ on the roster beyond the 2023 season. And then the knee injury happened and he was going to have the second highest cap hit on the team. And that's the same case really for Jonah Williams, and Monty Ossenfort would not just do that. It just makes business sense wise to move on. So there you go. You've prepped the roster for the most part. Now comes the fun part, right? We'll get into the free agent portion of our dream offseason, followed up by the draft. So excited, Johnny.